welcome to PhD with Women on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hacks delivered will be by our guest Sumaiya Noor. Topic: How to build a global career as a woman in technology. Episode 96 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my motto. And empathy is critical when you are building a career as a woman in technology. There is a lot of things to consider when you are focusing on building a global career. Building a career in tech as a woman is challenging feat, let alone if you come from an underprivileged background. But with the right tools, mindset, skills, and strategies, you can accomplish it. Our guest, Sumaiya Noor, will take us through her unique journey as a woman from an underprivileged background who applied for a scholarship to achieve a global career in technology. Sumaiya has 13 plus years of experience in a wide range of leadership roles and has taken global roles where she led and managed teams across several countries, continents in product management, digital transformation, and talent management. She is also on the advisory council of Harvard Business Review and a member of the World Economic Forum AI's Council. Outside work, Sumaiya is an avid supporter of women and human rights, education, and health for underprivileged individuals, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sumaiya, where in the world are you today?
Hey, Pieta and everyone. Thank you so much for having me here and for such a generous introduction. I'm really flattered. I think you were really kind with your words. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm fabulous. I'm in the US in beautiful Boca Raton. The sun is just shining and raising. It's 9 a.m. I suspect, quite late with you, is it?
It's not actually because I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and I'm in Eastern time as well. So we are on the same time zone. And I'm really glad that you're in the sunny part of the world because here we have bit cloudy and it's like below freezing point as well. But this is pretty normal for this time of the year. I cannot complain, but I'm really glad to see you sun shining on your face. It's such a happy feeling.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to bring lots of happy feelings because it's PhD Positivity Hugs delivered today. We are pre recording this live stream, and because Sumaiya is very busy, is leading very busy life. And Sumaiya, you're originally not from Toronto. Where are you from? Where were you raised and born?
So, Beata, I was born and raised up in Pakistan. It's for people who don't know, it's in South Asia, right next to India. And as you shared, that I come from a very humble background. And I started my journey in Pakistan many, many years back. And it's when I look back, it's such an exciting and exhilarating journey. I'm fortunate that I have lived across the world, across so many continents and countries. It has given me a lot of perspectives and also helped me or enabled me to understand that how different parts of the world are sometimes very different for a woman, but also they have many similarities when it comes to all the different regions of the world, to be a woman and especially to be in technology as a woman and to grow your career there.
Oh, absolutely. We just talked about a post I posted the other day on LinkedIn because it was my anniversary of coming to the US. And can you imagine, people, that I didn't apply for a visa because of fear of not being accepted in America? because it really depends on who you meet at the border. And that what happened to me when in the 90s I went to study for a summer intern in Manchester. And I was stranded in Dover for a night because I did not show that I have enough money to support myself, and I didn't know that I have to show, because I thought universities or scholarship is for everyone, and I didn't really get it. It was pre-internet times, so I didn't really have that network to rely on and see what information I need to gather in order to enter the place. I knew that to come to US, I would have to queue in a long queue to get a visa, because I'm Polish, and Poland was one of the few countries in European Union that could not go via ESTA. So last year, thanks to actually President Donald Trump, if you're wondering what Trump did to this country, well, he let us pose enjoy your beautiful country by applying via ESTA system, and I didn't have to queue, and I didn't have to worry that I will be refused entry. Anyway, going back to Pakistan, Sumaya, in Pakistan, women represent only 14% of the IT workforce, according to a 2012 study by PASHA, the Pakistan Software Houses Association for IT. So, how did it happen that you thought about career in IT?
It actually happened with me. I think it was on the cards for me to pursue this career. Like many other parents in Pakistan, I would say that yes, I come from a very humble background, because in Pakistan, the society is greatly divided into social classes, and I don't come from a privileged social class. Then, being a woman in a country like Pakistan, which is highly patriarchal even to this day, and the Pasha number, which you have just percentage of women, which you have just shared with all the audience, I think it has only improved by certain points, and now it's 20 to 25% of women in the total workforce. And given that scenario, I was a little bit privileged that both my parents were educated. They were not rich, but they were educated. My mother had a full-time career, and so did my father. So they encouraged me to at least study until 12th grade. But like many other parents, they either wanted me to be a doctor or a teacher, because my mother was in teaching. I wouldn't say teaching profession, but directly or indirectly related to teaching profession. So I was studying pre-medical until my 12th grade, and then, as life has its own plans, at that point in time, I applied for a military medical college, because my father has a military background. He wanted me to be in military medical college. And once again, this is the point which I want to highlight now. This is early 2000s. And now I'm dating myself. And I don't want that. But the point which I'm trying to make, at that point in time, there was only 5% seats reserved for women, who make up 51% of total population in Pakistan. And I never thought that it's fair with women. Anyways, for given that scenario, I was not able to make the cut, not because my numbers were not good enough in 12th grade, only because the competition was so tough when you have only 5% seats for 51% of population reserved there. And it has changed since then, but that was my story. And because I couldn't get into that, my parents were so, I just cannot tell you. It was like a dreaded feeling at home for many days. And it felt like that in their head or in their thought process that my life has ended altogether. And they told me that I don't know what, like both of them told me that we don't know what you will do next, because you have lost your only chance at life. Now figure out yourself. Okay, I was extremely green, young, 16 and a half years old person. How would I figure out? And I come from a background, I didn't have computer at home. I didn't have access to internet. So how would I figure out? But it happened to be that one of my neighbors, they were studying software engineering, and I was like talking to them, and this was a male person. I was talking to them, they were a few years older than me, and they said that you're pretty smart. Why don't you get into engineering, software engineering? And this is a new area, and computers are, taking over the world. You will have a lot of opportunities here. And for me, coming from that humble background, I didn't think much. So I will not take credit. The only thing which I thought of is that, okay, would I be able to get a job to support my family financially? If yes, let's dive into it. That's how I got into software engineering. And in a batch of 65 students, I was among the 9 or 10 female in the class. 4 years of engineering were really challenging in so many different ways. And I know that engineering, anyways, it's very challenging field of study. But for women, it's even harder because when you may have to make those grouped or teams in the class, and they are mostly male, and it's a segregated society, they don't feel comfortable working with you. I have heard many times that women are not good with technology, and I also always used to quote that, do you realize that programming language, first programming language was created by a woman by the name Ada Lovelace?
Yep.
So how you can say that women are not good in technology? And I can give 101 other examples, but in interest of time, just to move on, one of the highlights of my bachelor years were, and you probably will laugh on it, that I got myself into software engineering, and until the end of my first semester in my bachelor's, we didn't have computer at home.
Mm.
Couldn't afford it. And the expectation was that I will learn the programming languages and everything. So I used to sit for very long hours at night in the my university lab in order to get all the assignments and programming assignments and other electronic assignments done. So that was very challenging. And then my parents had to take a loan in order to get the computer. I'm sharing it because I'm way past that phase, but I want to give hope to all other people who are, regardless of their gender, male or female, that if they're struggling, don't think that you don't have a certain privilege, you cannot make it. Because if you dream high enough and if you try hard enough, anyone can make it. So after that, completing my bachelor's was a very challenging journey. And I wanted to go abroad for studies. That has always been my dream, but my father refused. He said that not even a male person or a boy has ever gone outside for studies alone from our family. How would you go being a girl? And I had a very friendly relationship with my father. I told him, okay, if you're not sending me abroad for studies, anyways, my parents couldn't afford it, so I had to figure out a scholarship, which I figured out by that time. And but I told him that if you're not sending me abroad, I'm not studying any further. But then he convinced me somehow that you have to get admission in the MBA, which I think it was a very wise decision. My father has passed away 13 years earlier, so I still give him that credit. And the point is that I got into MBA. That was the topmost, still the topmost school in Pakistan, and it's a globally ranked university as well. And I got into it at a very after a very tough competition, because the merit is really high and very few people get into it. But that has such that experience shaped my personality in so many different ways. I wouldn't say I was ever shy, but I was definitely not very open about my underprivileged or not so rich background, because people used to outcast you on the basis of that. But that MBA experience somehow gave that courage or confidence to me to be more open about it. And I'm glad that it happened. It didn't happen in one step, it happened over the years, but that was the starting point. I got into
So
that.
does it mean, Sumaya, I'm sorry to interrupt your thought, does it mean that you have to be exceptionally good to apply for certain studies, or you just have to have a grit and work hard? Is there, or it's a mix of both?
I would say it's a mix of both. You need to have exceptional grades in order to get into those type of universities. And also later on when I got Fulbright scholarship, I mean you have it's a open merit scholarship. It's not a need based scholarship. And from a 200 million population of Pakistan, anyone can apply for it. There is no restriction if they meet the basic criteria. But only 100 to 110 people get it. So
Mm.
just imagine that what type of competition there would be, and especially for females, because it's harder for females to get into these type of opportunities. They don't even meet the basic criteria. So I would say a combination of both hard work And you have to, because of that hard work, you actually become really good in your grades and whatever you have achieved. And also, not only your academics, I would highly focus on the community work, because I have always been focused on community work and what type of impact I have been making. So that was part of it.
Mm. But you have to be open to learn, even if you can't afford, for example, learning in a foreign university, or you can't get that scholarship. We talked about being an autodidact, and history is filled with people called autodidacts, or individuals who teach themselves about the subject or subjects in which they have little to none of formal education. Benjamin Franklin was an autodidact. So were, for example, Gustav Eiffel, the
Yeah.
Eiffel Tower, as we know, Frida Kahlo, and Brooklyn Bridge was completed after 14 years of construction by it was completed by Emily Warren Roebling. She was the wife of the main engineer who actually fell ill at the end of the process. So she stepped in and she actually managed the whole um, engineering process, the whole building of the Brooklyn Bridge. And if it wasn't for her, we probably couldn't enjoy it today. So tell me, is there a way to get into technology without the funky gizmos, without the newest model of Mac, or with the newest internet connectivity, Starlink?
I think there is always a way if there is a will. And I would strongly say that, especially these days, with the advent of internet being available 24/7, most of the people, even in developing countries, I mean in Pakistan, now people have 24/7 access to internet. And the way, not only internet, the technology has boomed overall, whether it's AI, whether it's a lot of other web 3.0 technologies. I think if there is a will, people will find a way to do it. And being, you mentioned about being autodidact, I think I consider myself a lifelong learner or a autodidact, and that played a very important role in my journey as well. So I'll give a couple of short examples here. So for example, I was studying engineering, pre-med and all science subjects, but I have always been very interested in history and politics. So I have been teaching myself on history, and not only Pakistani history or subcontinent history or South Asian history, but the world or global history. And I still do that. And when now people will think, well, how would that impact your chances of getting into technology? I think it's really important to know people like Tesla. It's really important to know people like there are so many other people in the history who have made it despite so many challenges, and even during their journey they had to face a lot of challenges after making it. So if they can do it in a world, in a time where internet was not there, where access to information was not as easy or democratized as it is today, I think we all can. And being an autodidact definitely pays a dividends over the period of time. The only thing is that sometimes people think that, oh, I'm learning continuously and it's not paying dividends. Well, I'm using the word dividends for a reason here, because it compounds over the period of time. It's not that you're learning something today and you will get into technology or any type of career tomorrow. It takes time, but learning never goes. If you are very mindful about it, intentional about it, it will never go to waste.
And we, Sumaya, I believe we met over discussion as a woman tech makers ambassadors. We were appointed to be on this very, very limited group of people who supporters of women in technology. And we also discussed how imposter syndrome plays a role in our achievements, how we feel that we might look like we are faking it. Tell us, how did it impact your career and how did you overcome your imposter syndrome moments?
I'm glad you asked that question, Beata. I think it's really important to realize that imposter syndrome impacts or affects everyone, regardless of the gender. But research and data has shown that it impacts or affects women or minority people of minority, whether they identify as non-binary people, more as compared to men. And there is certain reason for that because of the societal pressures and the way society programs us. So the point here is that and I was not an exception either. I, throughout my career and still to this day, struggle with imposter syndrome many times a day. Some days it's worse than others, but then we all have to learn to deal with it. And initially in my career, the imposter syndrome was not coming. I was very confident in what I was achieving because I was a student initially, and then early on in my career, I was very fortunate that I got some mentors, or I got some executive sponsors who were supportive of me. So the challenge in the initial days was not about my skill set or competence, but the challenge in initial day was coming over and over again from the fact because society has programmed me in a way that probably I'm lesser than men in certain ways. Although I still give credit to my parents, especially my father, that he never programmed me that way, and his the confidence which he has given me is helping me after 13 years, that he's not no more part of my life.
You're probably saying that because you know he's gonna watch you now and be proud of you.
I hope so. I hope so. He had really.
But it's proven that if parents say to their children, your life is over because you didn't succeed in that 5% special, niche that you had to apply, and that is definitely having an effect on our perceiving of our abilities
Yeah,
to be there.
very
So
strong.
definitely the message to our parents go, never let your children down. Always praise them and try to encourage them. Don't put your children down. So, Sumaya, are you a mother?
I am not a mother, but I have
Yes.
four younger siblings. And
Okay.
as I said, that my father passed away 13 years earlier. So I'm responsible for our old mother and those four younger siblings. And they were all studying when my father passed away. So I have a fair bit of an idea how it feels to be a mother.
I can imagine. Well, my parents would usually put me down, would usually say, they would always see the glass half empty. And I have to say that it helped me in a way to really prove them wrong.
And I also believe that I couldn't agree more with your earlier point that parents shouldn't discourage their kids because there are already enough critical people in the world who discourage you throughout your life, even after you accomplish so much. So, if parents will start doing to their kids or children as well, I guess that would be a very bleak world or future we will be giving to our coming generations. So,
Well,
but
imposter syndrome is that little voice that is keeping us in shape and is telling us, you have to prove yourself. And I have to say, Sumaya, that at one point of my career, I would work so hard and I would still feel I still didn't reach that success level. I still am not good enough. And let's go back to how to overcome, because it's turning into motivational speech, and I really appreciate your preparation here because you have some really good actionable points to make here.
sure, Pieta. So I would just say that completing that thought, imposter syndrome is real and it happens even after you have accomplished a lot of things. Earlier, it was more about my background, which was not very privileged. Now it's sometimes more about the impact which I'm making, that whether I'm making enough impact, or as you said, that no matter how hard I work, I keep on thinking, did I make the type of impact I always wanted to make? Now, how to deal with it? We have to deal with it on day to day basis. And in order to deal with imposter syndrome, first thing, never listen to the naysayers. People will say a lot of things to pull you down. People will say a lot of things, or will share a lot of limiting behaviors or limiting beliefs, just to let you know what, because I couldn't achieve it, you probably cannot achieve it either. Never let that take you down. I think it's really important to carve your own path. And I think it's really important to figure out that when people are coming from a place, they have their own windows of experience, and that's how they shape your perspective as well. Feedback is a gift, But we have to be very mindful that what type of gifts we are accepting and what type of gifts we should leave for a while, because those are not good for our progress. So that is my first advice. The second point to deal with the imposter syndrome is to work on yourself every single day. And again, coming back to the point of be open to learning and be an autodidact, because the moment you feel imposter syndrome, it's sometimes either because of the lack of impact. In my case, the way I feel now sometimes, or many times I would say, or sometimes it's the lack of skills which we feel, oh, I could have been better skilled at something. So how to deal with it? To upskill yourself continuously. And as Steve Jobs said, I will just like to quote him because it's one of my favorite quotes, that always be stay hungry and stay foolish. Because if you think that you have already achieved enough or already learned enough, probably that's the day or that's the moment where your progress will stop. So I would just say that don't listen to all the people around you because they have their own perspective. And especially if they're talking, having negative talks that you cannot achieve it. And then second thing is that if you feel imposter syndrome because of lack of impact or certain limitations in your skill set, who's stopping you to learn more?
Mm. How do you celebrate your success? That's one of the steps that is helping some people to deal with imposter syndrome. How
Yeah,
do you do
that
this?
is an area which I still struggle to this day. So I have to be very honest. It's extremely challenging for me to celebrate my own successes. I am very quiet about it, but some of my mentors and executives in the recent years have told me to be more active on social media like LinkedIn and to celebrate my successes or wins, no matter how small they are, because that will give me hope or energy to continue my journey. But I have to admit that I'm really bad at celebrating my successes. In my head, just like you mentioned earlier, I think it's hard for me to see that even when people say that, oh, you have accomplished so much, to me, sometimes it comes as a surprise. So,
Well, I have to say that my way of celebrating my success is sometimes buy something that I know will last for longer. So I, for example, I would buy a scarf or shoes or a bag. And that way I know I bought it with the money I made while I was so successful. And that way I remind myself I'm a bit of a shopaholic, I have to admit to it. But that's an easy way to remember, oh, that bag I bought when I went to Miami. So that's one of the ways how to deal with that. Recognition of your achievements, no matter how small, is definitely one thing that we also discussed with our previous guests. For example, with Aileen Montaro, who was our PhD guest 2 years ago, and she's working in technology. She's a CTO of the university. So, for example, Sheryl Sandberg, the who used to be COO of Facebook, also faces imposter syndrome, or our favorite quote generator Maya Angelou also has some imposter syndrome. Had she passed away, so she had some imposter syndrome moments, and we know how great achiever she was. Now let's go back to the balance. How do we, as women in tech, how do we keep balance of work and enjoying life? How is it for you?
I think, Pieta, it's for me more like I like to use the word integration rather than balance. I think sometimes we have to integrate our work and personal lives in a way that at one given point in time, let's suppose if you are having a sick person in your family and you have to take care of them, well, that you have to make that a priority. But then at like work, if you have a product deliverable coming up, then you have to make that a priority for a certain week, for a certain day, or for a certain month. So I think it's more like an integration. You cannot always maintain a balance, but more than, work and life balance or integration, whatever you want to call it, as a woman, I think there are certain other factors which would really like to highlight, where you have to maintain the balance, and it impacts your journey, your career journey, way more than maintaining the balance between work and life. It does have a significant impact, but as a woman, there are three areas which I would like to focus, where this is very specific to women, by the way, because we're talking about building a technical career for women. I think the first area which I would like to talk about is humility versus self promotion. Now, for many cultures, women are just programmed to be higher in humility as compared to men. So it's very, very hard for them to promote themselves professionally or personally. I struggled with that for many years myself, but I think that one of the advice from one of my mentors changed all of it. They said that if I will not advocate for myself, if I will not celebrate my successes, coming to your earlier point here, then who else will? So it's really important for women to come out of that, a part where self promotion is sometimes looked down at in certain societies, in certain cultures. And especially as a woman, I think you have to maintain a balance between humility and self promotion. Yes, humility is important for your character building, and at heart you should always focus on humility. But when it comes to progressing in your career, I think certain level of self promotion is definitely required. The second area which I would like to focus on when it comes to being a woman in technology is politeness versus assertiveness. I would again go back to one of my mentors back in my career. I was still very early in my career, and she was a women leader at a Fortune 100 company, and I was part of that company as well. And she gifted me a book, and that book had a very interesting title. The title of the book was Well Behaved Women Seldom Make History.
Mm.
So that was very intriguing title in itself, because I've always been told that, oh, you have to act like a woman, a lady. And I was like, okay, you always have to be polite, you always have to be the absorbing one, and things like that. But now, in my, like, when I have achieved that phase, I strongly believe that, especially at workplace, there is an additional expectation from women to be more polite as compared to their male counterparts. I am not saying that being polite is wrong or you shouldn't be polite, but whenever there is a place where you have to take a stand, being assertive is really important. People will call you all type of different names being a woman. They will call you bossy, they will call you aggressive, and all those things which men don't face. But you have to maintain a balance between your politeness and assertiveness. Otherwise, it would be really challenging to grow your career. And the third and the last area which I would like to focus for this, balance part for women specifically, but I think that goes to men, or other people, other non-binary people as well, is tolerating certain behaviors at work versus speaking up for yourself and your team. So for example, if somebody is rude to someone just because they're senior to someone, or just because they are trying to make their point and they're like being really rude, I strongly believe that you as a leader need to have a backbone to stand up and call that behavior out, because regardless of the titles, everyone is required to be respected, and there is no place for the wrong behavior. Also, many times in my career, I have been told by, it's very unfortunate, but at one point in time, I was reporting into a CEO, and not too far in the past, and he told me that I have to take a bad behavior from a colleague just because I'm a woman and women are more forgiving. That was extremely painful, because if other person is shouting at me and not being nice or respectful, the basic necessity at work, and you are telling me that I have to take it just because I'm a woman, that is not any logic. So I think those are the three areas, along with work life integration or balance, which women specifically need to pay attention to if they really want to grow further in their technology careers or in their careers overall.
So, what did you say to that person who told you to be forgiving?
I mean, I was very indirect to them, but I told them that I asked them, I actually didn't tell them anything. I asked them, would you tell a male in my position to do the same? And they didn't have any response. They didn't have any answer to that. So they knew at that point in time that they are wrong. They are
Absolutely.
discriminating on the basis of gender. So I didn't tell them anything, but rather I asked them that question.
Good point. One of the things I experienced yesterday, I was chatting to a very friendly folk who saw a lady passing who was actually moderating a panel, and he said to me in private, "Oh, I hate this woman. She thinks she owns the place. She thinks she's the most amazing, intelligent person." And I responded, "Well, isn't it what men always do?"
Yeah.
So that's one thing of calling out on people's bias. And he actually complained then to my husband, "Oh, she punched me." Yes, so you have to call it
That is
out.
very funny, by the way. Complaining to your husband. You're a grown up. I mean, I don't know. It's very funny.
It is very funny, but it really felt liberating to be in the moment and be able to respond. Because as we know, fear of what other people think of us is the most paralyzing thing.
Yes.
And as Cindy Gallop says, fear of what other people will think is the single most paralyzing dynamic in business and in life. The best moment of my life was the day I realized that I no longer give a damn what anybody thinks. That's enormously liberating and freeing, and it's the only way to live your life and do your business. So that's definitely replies to your humility versus promotion balance approach. And as Cindy says also, don't look back. You're not going this way. No regrets, one life. That's definitely a message from both of us. Sumaiya, thank you so much for these very liberating thoughts you're leaving us with. Now, you talked about the perfection versus progress, and we talked about it before joining the show because you were interested in PhD positivity hacks delivered on the live stream. And I openly spoke to you about the fact that my first interviews were very clunky. I didn't know what I'm doing, and I was stuttering, and it was very humiliating to watch some of it because I didn't like my voice, I didn't like the things I saw. However, people don't always cling on to that stutter, do they?
I don't. I think, Beata, again, this is the imposter syndrome playing it part here. I think all of us have to start from somewhere, right? We don't born with certain skills or certain characteristics or certain traits. We have to learn it over the period of time. I find you, by the way, very impressive during your interviews. I don't know how you pull up all these thoughts together and bring it all together to the table while speaking to the other person and also talking about their journey. I speak very frequently, on multiple forums globally, but to this day, some days, I don't like the way I look in the camera. I don't like the way I appear on the camera. And sometimes I'm like, why didn't I tilt my head to this angle, not to this angle? Why I was so focused on speaking? Why I didn't, why I was not focusing on my delivery itself? And, a lot of other things. The whole point which I'm trying to make here, that all of us have to start from somewhere and have to give the credit and take the credit that at least we tried to immerse ourselves into it. And I would also like to share a couple of things here. You mentioned about Maya Angelou earlier, right? One of her favorite quote for me is that you will face defeats in life, but never let yourself be defeated. This is my thoughts for myself, but also for anyone struggling in life right now. Because defeats are part of our journey. We cannot be perfect all the time, but never let yourself be defeated. And if a lady as great as Maya Angelou is saying it, I mean, we at least have to give some thought to it.
Oh, absolutely. Yesterday we shared. Yesterday I had an interview with somebody who quoted Albert Einstein, and this was also very humble quotation, all about self-doubt. So definitely we are all facing that moment of where am I going in my journey? It's sometimes life redirecting us into a new avenues, into new exciting paths to make our lives better. Now, Sumaya, you said that you started your career in right now in Toronto. How did you make all that move? How did you prepare yourself for that move?
So right now I'm based in Toronto, but this is not the first country which I have moved to from Pakistan. For last 14 or 13 years, I have been living outside Pakistan. The first country which I ever moved out to or moved to was USA. That was as a part of my Fulbright scholarship. And at that point in time, I was very young in my early 20s, very green. And I, but I think being green brings a lot of pros as well, apart from challenges. And I would like to focus on the pros here. When you are green, you don't know many times that what we will face or what type of challenges there would be, and that is a blessing. As we say that ignorance sometimes is a blessing. So that was a very positive experience for me, and also because I was very warmly welcomed in US. And it was my first time that when people started looking at me or evaluating me or thinking of me based on my skills or on my achievements, not on my background or where I come from. So that was a very refreshing change for me. From there, if I answer your question, I moved to Europe. I lived in quite a few countries, both in Eastern and Western Europe. From there, I moved to Southeast Asia, lived there for a very short period of time. Then I moved to Middle East, and I was based in Dubai for 18 months, but I was looking after a bigger region then. And I was traveling, I was literally living out of a suitcase, and I was traveling throughout Asia Pacific, Middle East, and Africa. Then I moved back for a very short period of time back to Pakistan. And then from there, I moved to Canada finally, because I mean, it was an impending move for a long time. I had a very progressive, highly progressive career before coming to Canada. But when I moved to Canada, after living across four continents and multiple countries, and working and leading teams across all six continents, I cannot tell you enough, and this is probably Beata for all the our listeners today, that no matter, sometimes in your head you think that you're very experienced, but nothing can prepare you to for a move to a new country. When I came to Canada, I didn't have any family, I didn't have any friends, and I came here with the pressure or responsibility of supporting financially and otherwise family of five, my mother and my younger siblings. And I resigned from my VP role and I moved to this country. I had European and US education mostly on scholarships. I worked with Fortune 100 companies and startups. And when I moved to Canada, the type of journey I went through, I would not like to go into the details, but I would just like to say this statement, that it was many times worse than my, you know, imagined nightmares. And I was considered as a outsider. Every single day during my job search, there was no support available. It was psychologically, physically, and emotionally very draining and straining. I felt isolated and lonely. I was realized for the first time in my life, after living across those four continents and multiple countries, that my education, my experience, my skill set, nothing matters. The only thing which matters is the color of my skin. And I was labeled as a brown female, the way I have never saw myself before coming to Canada. Because for some reasons, I mean, I'm a very inclusive person myself, and I believe in building long term or investing in long term relationships regardless of someone's ethnicity, background, or skin color, or nationality, or even gender. I strongly believe in having, relationships across gender as well. And for the first time ever in my life, I have felt so isolated because the only thing which I heard back from the industry was that I am a brown female looking for executive level positions. So who will hire me? And that impacted my personal life because, as keep on saying that I support a family, I came here with a limited saving, resigning from a VP level job. And people even told me, like, they went to the extent that somebody, like, I was talking to a recruiter and they said, you know what, you're looking for executive level roles in technology and you're a brown female, you will not get it. Why don't you think of getting a construction worker job? And I was, that night I literally cried. And I'm sharing it with all the people that there will be dark moments in your life. But I would like to quote here, like Aristotle, one of my, as I said, I'm into history, that he said that it is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. And that was my mantra at that point in time. And I just thought in my head that after 21 years of education, that too mostly on scholarship, and after 10 plus years of such a stellar career for which I worked extremely hard, now you are telling me to be a construction worker just because I come from a certain race or ethnicity? I didn't even choose that. And I'm not even, I'm not apologetic about it. I have never been.
Mm.
So, but that move taught me, if I focus on the positive side of it, I have overcome that challenge, and that taught me a lot. That was very emotionally, psychologically, and physically straining for me. But I think that one thing which is important for me is to be always kind and empathetic and maintain my integrity. I believe that I maintained my integrity, kindness, and empathy throughout that difficult period. And I came out as a better person, not as a bitter person.
Uh, you will face many defeats in life, but never let yourself be defeated, as Maya Angelou says. That's one of other life lesson quotes that you brought to our attention, Sumaya. So, which one is your favorite life lesson quote, and how does it relate to your life?
I would say Maya Angelou's quote is definitely the top one. The other one, the Aristotle one, which I just shared, that it's during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. This is my guiding principle because I face a lot of challenges in life, and that's how I keep myself going. But one thing which is, another quote, because you asked for one, but it's very difficult to put a finger on one. I will share another one which is very much aligned with my world's view sometimes, because despite all the technology, all the progress, I think sometimes it's very difficult to overlook or oversee that how many people who don't understand a certain topic, and they talk about it and they do things about it, and that makes world not a very better place. So George Carlin was a American comedian, and he once said, which resonates really well with my world's view, that never underestimate the power of stupid people in large groups. If we look at all the wars in the world, currently or in the past, if you try to tear them down to the basic principles, you will see that it was mostly the stupidity of large number of people. So that those are two or three of my favorite quotes in life.
So the stupidity of recruiter who advised you proved that you can make it. So eventually you got that job. One of the things, Sumaya, I think we have to point out to anybody who is looking for global career is focusing on achievements and highlighting these achievements, no matter how small, because that definitely makes a big impact. And also remember to apply for a job even if you don't feel that you fit every requirement that is on the list. If
Couldn't
you
agree more with you. Couldn't agree more with you on that.
And that's actually data proven research that shows that women only apply for jobs if they fit at least 60% of qualifications required. Whereas men, no, sorry, men when
Yeah, it's
they
other way around. I get
60,
you.
yes, whereas with women it's more close to 90% of
Yes.
specifications required. So definitely that's one of the things we can change. We as women in technology, women applying for better job positions, we can change that by applying for any job that you dream of. And don't worry, the worst that can happen, you hearing no, or you hearing from a recruiter, you could qualify for construction job.
That's a very good point, Beata, and I would like to add on that. I would just say that being women, we are programmed by the society to be self critical and to be way more self critical than men. And as you rightly said, that the worst that could happen to you is to hear a no. But I would like to make a point here that rejection is part of the process. And sometimes rejection is redirection. So that's the mantra which I go with, that once you get rejected by a certain opportunity, maybe it was not good for you and you never know. It's always a redirection. Take it that way and continue your journey. One rejection shouldn't pull you down or hold you back from continuing your journey further. And you made a very good point earlier that the outlook should always be future. Never be the prisoner of your past.
Mm. Never be the prisoner of your past. Rejection is redirection. This is the universe telling us something, and the universe at this moment of time is telling me we are heading towards the end of our discussion, Sumaya. We have a couple of questions that I would like to pinpoint today, and I'm going to ask you, as Eleanor Roosevelt once says, women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water. In life, how are you in hot water? How are you brewing, Sumaya?
I think pretty good so far. There have been challenges, but overall, I think that I have learned a lot through my journey. So I give this credit to all the allies during my journey. And I strongly believe that, yes, women never know their true worth until and unless they're put in a difficult situation.
Well, I have to say also, Sumaya, because this is the topic I was focusing just last week when it was a very, very big thing of 8th of March. Once a year, we remember about all these humble women, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, and 364 days later, we are completely oblivious to the fact that we need to advocate for them,
Yeah.
because women do not need mentors as much as somebody who is going to get you that job, who is going to make that contact with a recruiter, who is going to direct you in that new exciting global opportunity, and is going to help you get there. Surmaya, let's go to the pandemic is over question, and you could invite any person in the world because we are global citizens, and you could have breakfast in anywhere in the world. Who would you invite and where would you love to go to?
Very difficult question. And it's again so hard. I am such an avid reader of history and I'm into current affairs and politics. Can I take the liberty, Beata, to quickly quote four people as compared to one? That either
Oh
of
my
them.
goodness, it's going to be round table. Let's go for it.
Okay. So two of them are alive. One is Ratan Tata. He is a industrialist and a businessman in India. He has always been my top favorite because not because of his business or being an industrialist, but the type of impact he has made on his nation and the type of human being he is. The other one would be Dr. Adibul Hassan Rizvi. He is a doctor in his very ripe age of 80s, I guess, now in Pakistan. He has left a life of privilege which he could easily live in any developed country. And he came back to Pakistan and he has been serving the nation for past 2 or 3 decades. and very underprivileged people free of cost. So the type of impact again he has made and the type of individual he is, and he's still very active in his 80s, that inspires me a lot. And two individuals are not with us anymore, but their legacy and their work still stays with us. One is Dr. Abdus Salam. He was a scientist from Pakistan, and he won Nobel Prize, the only Nobel Prize from Pakistan. Uh, the type of perseverance he had and the type of determination he had, despite the challenges which he faced, and the impact which he made on physics and his research, the impact which it is currently making even to this day, is huge. And the other person is Abdul Sattar Edi. He was a philanthropist in Pakistan, and he started from nothing. He was not even educated, but for 7 or 8 decades of his life, he completely dedicated his life to the most underprivileged people in Pakistan, and he established the biggest, I would say, network of ambulances in Pakistan, biggest network of orphanages in Pakistan, biggest network of care homes for women who have been thrown away by their families for whatever reasons. So those are the type of people who I look up to, and those are the people who inspire me every single day. And I would like to have a breakfast with them in one of the historical palaces or forts in India or Pakistan, because those palaces and forts have been, they have captured my interest since childhood. I'm like a huge history person, which you can tell probably by now in the conversation. So that would be my ideal breakfast.
So, Sumaya, I wonder how will you moderate that discussion, because it's people with different backgrounds. What would be the topic of your breakfast?
I would only ask them. It's a very good question, Beata. I am glad you asked that. I am not like I've read enough about their lives or their impact or their work. I would ask all of them one question for sure, and that would be similar for all of them: that how did you manage to have the courage, stamina, to work so much for making the impact when you knew that you are not many people are liking you, and you still keep on going through your journey despite the fact that you knew that you're not getting anything personal out of it? Like, how did you even had that type of courage, and what kept you going? I really would like to know that, because all of these people, like some have huge wealth like Ratan Tata, but he's still working to this day in his 80s, not because he want to accumulate more wealth, just because he is giving away more than 50% of his wealth every single day to the most needy ones. So for me, it's really intriguing, inspiring, and a topic of great interest, that what inspires them, what keeps them going despite all the challenges and all the negative words around them, that they're making that impact for humanity, which is living beyond their lifetime as well, in case of at least Dr. Abdul Sattar and Abdul Sattar Eti.
So, Sumaya, thank you so much for your very, very great discussion today. And I am really pleased that you made it in as a global citizen. And I'm glad that you encourage us all, no matter our background, no matter what we've done, what failures we faced, we can definitely achieve success wherever we would dream to be. Now, I would like to remind you that next week we will be joining, this is a recorded session with other underprivileged background guest. Naya Hashem was our guest last year, and she is going to talk about how to build beautiful applications with Flutter, an easy workflow for beginners. Sumaya delivered very great presentation on how to self-promote, how to celebrate your success, and how rejection is really a redirection. I all encourage you to check the people that she mentioned. I've never heard of all of her guests. I guess it's going to be my homework for today. Success is how high you bounce when you hit bottom, General George Patton said. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes, look for something positive in each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. And finally, Maya Angelou says, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Today is your day to hug the future, hug the positivity you want. Thank you so much to our lovely audience, and thank you so much for our production, Jamil, Racy, and Rashlin, and Sumaya. All the best with your global career.
Thank you so much for having me, Beata, and thanks a lot to the production team. I'm really glad that we had this conversation. And all the best, Beata, for whatever you are doing. You're doing a great job because you're bringing
Yay!
these women to the table who are still going through their journeys, not